Okay, so, and now share screen. Okay. So we're on the right-hand side today, and we're doing question 1. And question 1 is just a little bit about the syntax, more or less. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, there we go. Took a second there to click in. And all right. So number 1, create a vehicle class. Okay, let's create a vehicle class. Done. Vehicle class. Okay, remember, no different than our previous classes that we were doing before, right? Capital V for vehicle. The big difference is the class word and no parentheses. Okay, it should contain the following properties. Now, with our vehicles, with our class syntax, again, we use the constructor method, constructor method to indicate as the function that we run when we create new vehicles. Okay. I actually believe this is optional. I think you can start creating new vehicles without a constructor method. It's just you can't set any properties if you don't put a constructor method, right? I think this works. I'm just curious if this will error out or not, but I think it'll be fine. Yeah, it just works. But if you want to set any properties when you create the vehicle, you're going to want a constructor method. So, and in this case you do. So we have, what do we need? Following: steering wheel, engine, cost, and wheels. Engine, cost, and wheels should be accepted as parameters. Okay, so engine, cost, and wheels should be accepted as parameters, but steering wheel, not optional. All of our cars get steering wheels. Dot steering wheel equals, I guess, true. Yeah, steering wheel is set to true. So using this as our parent class, we're going to create 2 subclasses, okay, using our new syntax. First is motorcycle, which has an additional property called grand, and it inherits from vehicle and defaults wheels to 2. It also accepts a parameter, engine size, as an engine size and a cost. These should be passed to the vehicle from the motorcycle's constructor. So our language is getting a little bit complex. Okay, so it's really important that we take time to read these things 2, maybe 3 times. Okay, for me, I can read it really quick. Even you see me do this every day. I screw up every single day. Okay, because I'm reading it really quickly. I'm not taking my time. Make sure you take your time. Okay, don't do what I do. Do what I say. Okay, so we're going to make a class motorcycle that's going to inherit from vehicle. So to inherit from vehicle, we are going to use this new extends keyword. This extends keyword, okay, is not the full part of the inheritance. The inheritance really comes in 2 parts. This is part 1. And we put the super class here. I believe you can only ever extend from 1 class. How big is your cat, Jen? Wow. Okay, you can only ever extend from 1 class. And then we need our constructor here as well. And our constructor here is going to accept parameter engine and cost. Now, the second part here is we want, these also need to be this dot. We need to properly set these up in vehicle here. This dot cost equals cost, and this dot wheels equals wheels. Okay. Now, the first thing we need to do for our inheritance using class syntax is use the word super. Okay, if we don't, we're going to run into errors. That's upper super. And then we want to pass in the properties that match, the arguments that match the parameters. So it's accepting engine, cost, and wheels. So for sure, we are also accepting engine and cost. So we're going to go ahead and pass those through. Wheels, however, we are not accepting as parameters to our constructor, because we're saying that if we're a motorcycle, all of our motorcycles have 2 wheels. Contrary to this, maybe I have another class called bus, right? That extends vehicle as well, because vehicles have a variety. A bus is a vehicle. It doesn't have 2 wheels. It has 2, 4, probably like 6 wheels. 2, 4, 5, 6, like 6 wheels, at least 6 wheels, maybe like 8 wheels. Okay, so that might be flexible, or it might be consistent. All motorcycles have 2 wheels in our world, and we say that right here. It defaults to 2. So we could do this. Okay, that's not bad, but we don't need to, because vehicle is setting the value of wheels for us. So what would be better is if we took advantage of line 7 here by providing a third argument to our super. So 2 will go into wheels. Wheels will go into wheels here, and we're missing engine. Okay, so I am leveraging the fact that vehicle is going to set wheels for me and default it to 2. I'm not accepting it in as a parameter. I'm just saying right here in this line, use the number 2 for wheels. Okay, any questions about that? That's something we haven't really seen, but I mean, we know how to use parameters. We know how to use arguments, right? It's just a matter of making that link, like, oh yeah, I can do that. Okay. Questions about that? Okay. And then the other difference is, that's it. No other difference. Okay. So we don't have anything special in motorcycle, I don't think. Oh yeah, additional property of brand. And then we're going to say this dot brand equals brand. Okay. And then car, we're going to do the same thing for car. Okay, car is a type of vehicle. So it's going to extend vehicle. And it should have its wheel set to 4. So it's going to have, create another subclass car, should have wheel set to 4, and should have a large engine. It should also have brand and passengers, which means I don't need to accept engine. I don't need to accept engine because all cars have large engines. So I don't need to ask, when you're building a car, what kind of engine do you want? Because you don't get that option. all of our cars have large engines, okay? But it also has a brand and it has passengers. It doesn't say it has cost, but you need to assume that it has a cost, that a cost is coming in because it has everything that a vehicle has. Okay, it has everything that a vehicle has plus. So if I didn't say a car has a cost, but a car is a vehicle, well, vehicles have costs, therefore cars have costs. Okay. And we're going to provide wheel set to 4 and large engine. So engine is the first parameter. I'm just going to say large string. Okay. Cost is the second parameter. And then wheels defaults to 4. And then this dot brand equals brand. And this dot passengers equals passengers. And then we can create 2 new motorcycles, 2 new cars, and 1 new vehicle. I'll just create one of each so you can see how we create them. Const car equals new car. It needs a cost, 12,000. A brand, Dodge. And passengers 4. Okay. And we'll build a new motorcycle. And it will be a new motorcycle. Make it 15,000. What else? Oh, it takes engine size. Engine size, extra large. Okay, cost 15,000. And brand, we'll call it. And then finally, we're doing a vehicle. So const vehicle, it's new vehicle. And we need engine, cost, and wheels. Engine, small, cost $4,000, and wheels 3. I don't know, a trike or something. Say 4. Okay. So there you have it. Our syntax to practice class ES6 classes and inheritance with ES6 classes. As I mentioned, going forward from now on, you can use ES6 classes all you want. Okay. I will insist that you do. You will probably want to. Any questions on any of this? Now, keep in mind, we didn't add any methods, but except for the constructor, but all the rest of the methods that we add are going to be follow the same format, just the method name plus parentheses, right? This is very different than what we're used to. Up till now, we've looked at arrow functions, we've looked at the function declaration, we've looked at function expressions, but now we're adding it with just the word drive. Right? And that's just something to do with class syntax. And that's pretty common in other languages. Okay. Okay. Question 2. So question 2, I'm going to take a little bit longer on. I want to go through the process of thinking about this better because it's a long one. Okay, there's a lot of little stuff going on here. But what I want to recommend that you do when you're trying to work through a problem, because in the real world, right, our problems are not going to be as well broken down as this at all, right? Our problems are going to be here. I need you to go build this part of the app. That'll be it. And this whole idea of what this is going to look like, the architecture of it, the methods, the objects that you need, the properties that you need, what the methods do, how the methods work, what it should even have. That's going to be, a lot of that is going to be left up to you. you're going to have to decide what methods your objects have. You're going to even have to, that, so they'll give you a guide. They'll kind of, most of the time you'll be able to sit down with people, especially in the early days of being a junior developer, and work your way through, well, what should a file system have? What should a file reader have, right? And you'll be able to sit down and work your way through, oh, it should have something that allows me to figure out the extension. It should have something that allows me to read in pieces of the file, right? And you'll figure that out. And then you can start building some sort of diagram something that's very similar to what we built at the first class, second class, third class, when we started learning object-oriented programming. Essentially object name, properties, methods, just to get a sense of what you're doing. But one of the most important things when reading something that you need to build, especially something big and complex like this, is one, read it again, just like I said before, read it multiple times, okay? Until you can understand at least what you need to do for your first few steps, okay? You don't need to understand the entire thing, because sometimes these problems can be so large that it's hard to keep everything in our heads. But it's important to have a really clear understanding of what we're doing right away, and what the entire, and a really good understanding of the overview of what we're trying to accomplish, okay? So you need to understand very clearly what you need to do right now, as well as a good overview of everything. You don't need to understand everything all the way up to the last step, okay? But you do need to understand things at a high level well enough. That way you know that because when you read through it, you might see something at the end that says, oh, that causes you to say, oh, I need to do something in a very particular manner at the beginning to accommodate this thing that's happening at the end, okay? And that's why you need that good overview. So you don't want to go in blindly saying, oh, well, I know where I need to start, and I'm just going to start. You want to have a good idea of the scope of the problem, as well as where you need to start, okay? So make sure you read through everything 2-3 times. That's absolutely where you need to start, until you can clearly explain the problem or what you're trying to accomplish to someone else. If you're not able to explain it to someone else, or your animal, your cat, your teddy bear, okay? If you're not able to explain what you're trying to do to something else, you don't fully understand the scope of the problem yet. So keep reading it and keep working through it. And when I say work through it, I don't mean start coding. I mean reading it until you understand very clearly what you're trying to accomplish. Okay, that should be step 1 for solving any problem. Step 2. Don't try to just solve it, the whole thing, okay? You need to divide and conquer. And we've talked about this. And dividing and conquering can be something that looks very different for every person, right? Because it's about breaking down the problems smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, until we can get down to a problem that we're really comfortable with solving. And I was doing some reading yesterday, and in the reading, in the example, they said a challenge for developers, for example, might be finding the 3rd largest number in an array. If you don't know how to find the 3rd largest number in an array, do you know how to find the largest number in an array? If you don't know how to find the largest number in an array, do you know how to find any specific number in an array? Like, keep breaking it down until you find a problem that you're comfortable with. Solve that problem, and then move 1 step closer. Find the number. Then find, Okay, I know how to find the number. Okay, great, do it. Now, see if you can take that one step further, find the biggest number. Okay, I got that. See if you can take that one step further, find the third largest number. So you're building on it incrementally, and that's going to be the same thing that we do here. Okay, actually, maybe not so much here. This is fairly broken down already, but definitely in today's exercise. Don't start with coding. Do not just start looking and being like, okay, constructor, file, okay, yeah, I'm just going to start writing. Have a plan. Doodle, draw. I like to write down like those rectangles that you saw that I gave you as examples in the drawings yesterday. So up here, shopping cart, this one. These little rectangles here, I like to draw these. I leave out this bottom part here where it says constructor and proto. I'll draw them, I'll put the class name on top, I'll put my methods inside, I'll put my properties in there too. And it just kind of gives me a good guide of like, oh, I get to look back and kind of get an understanding of what's going on, what my object is always going to look like, okay? And then when I have multiple objects, I like to draw little lines between them so I know, oh, these two are connected somehow. I need to build a connection. Okay, so I do a lot of doodling. I do a lot of little writing. I always have a pen and paper beside me with lots of little writing and doodling and stuff. So if you don't have a notebook beside you, you should probably just keep one. And you should probably be trying to solve some of these problems in your notebook before you actually start tackling them. And then finally, find a starting point. The starting point can sometimes be difficult for some people. You might want to start with something that you know you can do. So something that you know that's going to be easy. But you also have to be careful because you want to find some part of the problem that doesn't have dependencies. Dependencies is where you can't do A until you do, or sorry, you can't do B until you do A. So there sometimes are these starting points that you're forced to start with because you can't do this until you do that. Sometimes, okay? But sometimes you can do anything independently. For example, for this file one, I cannot start parsing or adding to a file if I don't have a file. But I can work on it because if I already know that a file is a string, just a string, then I can start working. I know how to add to a string. I know how to remove from a string. I know how to break a string apart, right? So technically you could, on this one, you could technically start anywhere. Now, just because you don't have a file doesn't mean you can't go about starting to solve the problem, right? You just have to think about the problem differently. Once you have all these little pieces all these little problems that you've solved, you can start connecting them together and forming your larger solution. There might be some pieces that you need to change a little bit so that way they fit properly, but that's okay. Code is free. Okay, so let's go ahead and look through this. We have a file class that has 3 properties: full name, file name, and extension, and 4 methods: get contents, write, get S, get C. I'm going to say, let's forget about all of those methods right now. Let's focus only on this first part here. Let's chop off all that stuff. Let's just forget about it to start. Let's just make our properties. Okay, full name, file name, and extension. So we're going to make a file class with full name, file name, and extension. So we're going to do a class file constructor This, I'm going to just put comments. This dot full name. This dot file name. This dot extension. Okay. And as you can see from our example here, our files are accepting two parameters, the full name and contents. Okay, so full name and contents, it says right here. Okay, two arguments, full name and contents. So full name and contents. I guess we would need contents as well. Sorry, as a property. I can't believe I missed that. Sorry about that. Because we're going to have to track contents. Okay, so we have these things. Full name is really easy, right? This dot full name is full name. This dot contents will be contents. Now, the other ones, maybe not so easy. This dot file name. What is this dot file name? This dot file name should contain the name of the file, excluding the extension. Okay, so let's take this down to a different spot. So we have the possibility of some different file names. We can have this. We can have this. We can have this. What should the output be here? What should be the file name of the file on line 45?
Hello world.
Hello world.
Hello world. Yep. What should be the file name here?
Class.php tester.
And how about this one?
Alpha.beta.gamma.delta.
Alpha.beta.gamma.delta. Yeah. Okay. Do we see a pattern going on here? Do we see, after doing 3 different ones, do we see a pattern of what's happening?
Yes.
What is that? Can you tell me what that pattern is?
In front of last period.
In front of the last period. Yeah. So we're looking at every single string and we're looking at the last period and we're taking everything that's in front of it. So let's change this problem around. And let's say, given a string, find the last period and take all the characters in front of that. Okay, that's our new problem. That's our new problem. If we're doing a divide and conquer, that's our new problem. Given a string, if I give you a string, I would like you to find we have to assume that there is a period. So find the last period and take all the letters in front of it, not including the last period. Lots of different ways to do this. Okay. SAG, how did you do this? Or how would you do this?
Can I use split method?
Split?
Yeah.
And what are you splitting on?
On period.
Okay, so if I took a string and I use the split method on that string and I split it on period, I get the results of perfect. So I've eliminated all my periods. Okay. And now I need everything but this last word. Right? I want to get rid of this last word. But I want to make sure I get those. I want to the problem is with that is I want to make sure I have those periods in there. The problem with split is when you split on a character, it takes them out and it breaks it into an array, right? So there's actually kind of two parts necessary here. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so now what? Who can help me out with the next step? So if I were to continue down this path of split, this is what I'm dedicating myself to right now, right? This is my first idea, right? Yes, there's a lot of other ways to do it, but this is a perfectly valid way. So this is what I need, right? In this case, I need this. This is what I want out of it. Okay, how do I get back to, if this is my starting point, how do I get back to this? This is what I have now.
Can we change the order of things and maybe do extension first so we can use pop and get that extension linked to it? And then after that, we can call the other parts and join by dot.
Okay, so, well, you know what? They're pretty much the same thing. We can do the extension, but we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that, okay? Now what?
Can we just pop it from the last?
Yeah, let's just pop it.
Then use it as an extension as well?
Get rid of the last one. And then what happens when we pop it? It disappears, right?
Yeah, and it returns the last value as well. So
yeah, so we'll come back to that in a second. So we get this. And then we're so close, right? Now what do we do with this? To get back to this.
Join by dot.
Yeah, join by dot. Join injects whatever character we want in between each element in the array and creates a string out of it. And so we get back to here. So we actually ended up winning both of these at the same time, because when we did this step, we popped, and when we pop, we get the last one back. And it just so happens that the last one is also the extension, right? So we won, we did two things at once. So we can do this dot extension. If we do it, let's see, if we do it in the right order, can we do it like this? So you may need to do something like this. So extension equals this dot full name dot split on periods dot pop. Yeah, so what we're going to want to do, if we do this, this is fine. Okay, this will give us our extension without the period, right? This dot full name, which is this guy here, dot split dot pop, which will give us that. That'll give us our extension. We can then do the same thing for file name. This dot full name dot split dot pop dot join back on period. And this will give us this part. If you wanted to be better about this, you can do it like this: const full name array, and then do this.
It has to be let though, isn't it?
Oh yeah, no, it doesn't have to be let.
Really?
Yeah, because it's an array. If as long as you're
Okay.
not reassigning it, you're fine, right? As long as as long as you're not reassigning full name array later, as long as you're not doing this again, you're fine. You can do as much as this stuff as you want. That's fine. But I would say this is probably acceptable. This is totally fine. A little bit on the complicated side. If you wanted to create like, this is my extension, this is this, and then create multiple variables, that's fine. I think for the most part, most developers would be able to understand this. Okay. And there we go. We're done our constructor.
Well,
Right,
I think there must be something wrong with the extension. If you use array pop, this return the rest of the array. It's not the last one.
Let's see.
No, extension only returns the last one. I think the file name doesn't return
Let's see.
file
Let's see.
name.
Oh, yeah, actually, this won't work. This won't work. File name won't work because if this is it, let me just see what pop returns. Returns that element. Okay, so this one will work. This one will not work because I need the remainder. So actually, it would be ideal if I did this. Actually, it would be ideal if I did this. Const full name array equals this. Pop. The reason is because when I pop, I get the last, returns that last element. So I get that element back, but it changes the length of the array. So it'll actually change the full name array. And so it removed that last element. So now I only have these elements left, which I will then join with. And I get that. Okay. So now, okay, now we're done. Now let's test it out. Okay, I've got a problem here. Oh yeah.
933.
Yeah. So now let's test it out. File, const, new file equals. I've got some samples here for us, right? We could just pop them right in. And we could try this one too. These two as well. Full name dot split. Oh, it's not this dot full name. It's just full name. Coming in from the parameter. You could take it here too. You can use this dot full name as long as you do it after you've declared it. Okay, doesn't matter which one you use. You're not actually modifying full name. So that's fine. Undefined, undefined. Why is it undefined? My file.
I think
full
you
name.
need an array like. Oh, you already have. Sorry.
Full name array, full name, file name is undefined. The second one worked. Class.php, tester.php. The third one worked. And actually it shouldn't be hello.txt, it should be hello. That's really strange. So we trace it. So we do a little bit of console.log and we check, what is full name array? Is it what we expect? Okay, we run it again. hello txt. And when I pop, okay. What happens when I join full name array file name? Oh, full name. Oh, this is checking full name. That's not even working. Why is that not working? Does full name dot split? Does split modify the actual string? No, it shouldn't do
it's
that.
uppercase N.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. There we go. There we go. I'm not even testing the right thing here. Okay, let's try again. Hello world.txt, hello world, and class PHP tester. Good, perfect. Now it works. Okay, so we solved a small problem. We tested our small problem. We debugged our small problem, and we're done our first piece. That is the approach that I use for programming. Okay, I do things very tiny. I probably would have, I mean, these two are pretty simple. I probably just would have done one at a time and just tested it until I got it. And then once I got that one, did the next one and then tested it until I got it. And sometimes it's not until after where you're like, oh, I could just use this one to figure out that one. And that's okay too. Okay, next one, get contents. Should return the contents of the file every time. That seems pretty easy. Okay, so all this is going to do is return this.contents. That's it. Okay, contents. Return this.contents. And we will check to see if this works. Hello world, perfect. Those /n's, right? Again, in a console, they're new lines. They print out new lines. So get contents simply returns this.contents, nothing else. You could have just said my file.contents, okay? But something that we haven't really talked about is that we do our best to not modify or touch properties externally. This would be externally, right? I am outside of this file and I'm accessing it externally. I'm reaching in and I'm grabbing it. You typically don't want to be able to touch properties like that. That's a more advanced topic that you'll learn about further in backend, which is why you might see a method like this. Methods are kind of the interfaces where we're allowed to go. The method will allow the people to reach in. So I don't go and reach in and touch the property directly. I get the property through a method, and the method gets to control that stuff. Okay, again, you'll see that later. Just in case you're wondering, like, why would you ever do this? Why don't you just get the contents directly? There's a reason behind that. Okay. Which one did you want to do next? We've got write, get S, or get C. So we have 3 more that we need to write. Write, get, or get C. Anyone have any preference of one that they would like to do? Which one is the easiest and you feel the most comfortable with?
Right.
Right. Okay, let's do right. So with write, we obviously need to, if we're going to write to a file, if we're going to increase, let's not use that word. If we're going to add to a string, we need to get the piece that we want to add, right? Obviously. So it should accept exactly one argument. Okay. And it will be appended to the end of the file or the string, right? What is our string? Our string is this.contents. That's our current string. It will be added to the end of it. So this.contents equals this.contents plus string. Done, right? Not quite. This works pretty good, except I'm missing one key aspect. The new content should be written on a new line of the file. Okay, so that means I need to add one of these things to it, right? /n. So add a new line, then add my new content, right? Or sorry, this.contents plus a new line plus my string, right? Except, let's take this out for a spin. Okay, so this is, and totally fine, right? My normal process would be like, okay, I don't know the end game here, right? I don't know what kind of little cases, little edge cases I'm going to run into. So let's try that out. So I've got a series of tests for you to try. So we're gonna try it out. And the problem is the first one, okay, with the first one, line 1, we shouldn't get a new line, right? If our file starts as empty, we should not start by printing a new line. As you can see, I get the contents, it's empty, right? I write my first line, I get the contents a second time, it's not starting with a /n, but this one would. So that's a problem, right? That is what we call an edge case. My solution is really awesome. It works for like 95% of my problem space, right? It's almost solving the whole thing. But I have this one little problem in that, unfortunately, when it's empty, it doesn't work as we would expect or as we would need it to. And so edge case. So start with this, start with doing what you know, and now we need to adapt it. Okay, so what can I do here? Is there some way that I could say, oh, if that string is empty, then add the new line, otherwise don't add the new line? Can I do that with code? Right, I can, right? We have everything we need. If the string is empty, then don't add a new line. Otherwise, add a new line. And actually, if the string is empty, we don't need to append it to contents anymore because contents is nothing. We can just set it to the string. Contents is now that new string that we passed in. So the first time we go through this and we say, line 1, it's just line 1. Going forward, we need to append it.
Is the condition should be this.contents equals empty instead of str?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay. And that's it. Right, so we start off small, we build up, we test, we get it wrong. So one of the things that you don't see me do is you don't see me build up a little bit at a time, test, find out that I did something wrong. You see me find errors in my programming, but you don't see me test every step of the way. And I would normally do that because it's not uncommon for us to be like, oh, this is the answer, I got it, test. Oh, this is the answer, test. Oh, that's wrong. Huh. It's almost right though. It's right 90% of the time. How do I fix this one little case? Okay. I usually test and I find errors because I'm not careful. The problem with me doing these problems in front of you is that I already know the answers. And so I know where to go. And I'm experienced, and so I can see the end from the beginning. But what I would normally do, what I am doing right now in my head, is I'm also looking at this and I'm saying, is there a better way to write this? So now that I've solved it, this will solve it. Okay, now that I've solved it, I'm now looking at this and saying, can I write this in a better way? And there probably is several ways to write this better. Better meaning smaller, but still expressive, right? Understandable. But I actually don't have a problem with this. I think it's fine. Yeah, okay. Next up, get S or get C. They're pretty much the same thing. Let's just pick get S. Get string. Okay, so we're getting one line at a time. So we have our file. Our file looks like this. Okay, with a bunch of lines. And we want to return one line at a time. How, with some successive calls to get S. How can we do that? First of all, what if I wanted to just return the first one, line one, the first line? How would I do that? Let's deal with that first. So I have this string. Right here. And I want to return only the first. This is what I want. When I call get S, this is what I want. How do I go from this to this?
For slices, I return the first index of the array.
So slice. So what does slice do? Let's go take a look. Oh, that was splice. I meant to slice, stop. Nice slice, yeah. I want to slice. Returns a shallow copy of a portion of the array onto a new object from begin to end, where begin and end represent an index of items in the array. Okay, slice works well, except how long? The problem with slice is it needs index numbers. It needs to know start at 0 and go until this far. The problem is I don't have that. I don't have those numbers. What else could I do?
We
I can figure
use,
it. I can figure it out for sure. But sorry.
we could use split again.
Yeah.
Instead of a dot, this time maybe the \n. Split by
Yeah.
that and then shift to get the first element taken out in a new array.
So,
That's what I did as well.
okay. So now we're going to split on \n. We can split on anything. We don't want those \n's in here anyways, right? We don't want those \n's. As you can see, every call to, we're getting a new one. So then to get that first one, we can just say, remember, our goal is just to get this first one, right? We can shift. We can take, or we can take 0. Either of the two work. Shift or 0. Shift is like pop, but off the front. 0 is just the 0th element, which will be in line 1. Okay. We know we're going to want to do this. And let's try shift. Okay. And we're not using this. We're using this dot contents. Okay. So let's try that. And we're going to press play. And what do we get? Huh? Oh, I should probably include all the stuff here too. Undefined, undefined, undefined.
We might want it in. Oh.
Should probably return something. Sorry. See, again, another really important reason to test. Line 1, line 1, line 1, line 1, line 1, line 1.
We need an array like we made it and with the dot.
The problem with shift is shift returns the value, which is kind of what I would want. Does it modify the array? Yeah, okay, so the problem is that when I call this dot contents dot split and it creates an array, every time I call, and this works perfectly for the first one, right? And this is exactly what we want, right? Your process would probably be, well, why the hell is this not working, right? Like, I don't understand. Why is this not working? Who's got an answer for me?
No, we could add an array like we did in the beginning. No?
Okay, just
don't want
it. Don't tell me what we could do. Tell me why this isn't working.
Because every time when gets s is called, it creates new array.
Yeah, because every time we call gets, this dot contents dot split is creating a new array. And the first element of that array is always going to be line 1, line 1, line 1, line 1. And all we're doing is we're popping off that first element and returning it. Then we call gets again, we create a new array. Line 1 is the first one, we shift it off, right? So it's not actually modifying that array over time, right? So ideas on how we can fix this. Sorry.
Yeah, so we could add an array at the constructor, like we did with the split dot.
Okay. To track the gets, right?
Sorry?
To track for gets.
Yes.
Yeah, for gets. So essentially the gets array. Okay. And that's kind of my approach too. So what Saria is saying is, but this can't be an array. This has to be a new property. Because we can't do a const array, because that only exists within here, and it fizzles away by line 43. So if we want something, if we want to keep track of something in this object, we have to do it as a property. This dot gets array equals this. Now, we're going to run into a problem here too, but that's okay. Okay, let's keep going down this path anyways. We're going to go a little bit longer today because I think this is good. Okay, and then, so what we're going to do is once we get the contents, we're just going to split it. And then we're going to use this dot gets array. And we're going to shift off one at a time. Sound good? So this won't become a new array every time we call gets. It will be constantly using this ever existing array that we're going to slowly chisel away at. Okay, so let's try this one. Line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, line 5. Undefined, undefined, undefined. Looks good, right? Except, can anyone see the edge case that is not being shown here? Let me help you out.
Oh yeah, the first result where it's empty. Wait, never mind.
No, let me help you out here.
We weren't testing for that, sorry.
Yeah, let me help you out here. So I'm going to create a new file. Then I'm going to add a new string to the end of the file, an additional string, and we'll see if we can get that. It did not show up. How come?
Because write wasn't called within gets.
Should write be called in gets? Should I write?
Right.
Because
when I get
the get array is created when the new file is created. It's never changed.
Exactly. The gets array was created when we created the file. And so when I add additional stuff to that, to the contents, it doesn't update gets array. So I've got a couple of options here. Option 1 is when I write to a new file, in addition to updating the file, I can also update this array. I can set the new contents, and then I can update the array. That will work. No problem. Okay, so that might be something, that might be your approach. My personal approach to all this, I'll show you my, so there we go, we're done, we solved it, yay. Okay, my personal approach, I'll show you my personal approach to all this, is actually this.
That's what I did too, just to move the index number to it.
Yeah, and so all I'm doing, instead of a gets array, I'm just doing a gets counter. And it starts at 0. And then as I go through it, every time I call it, it just increments it. So it's this.contents.split is always going to be a brand new array. It's just that it's going to return line 1 the first time, line 2 the second time, line 3. It's going to return the 0th element, the first element, the second element, the third element, the fourth element, the fifth element. And it continues to exist because it doesn't reset at 0 because it starts at 0 when the object is created, and then it increments over time. That's my approach.
Did you create the variable anywhere though, or did you just declare it in there?
I just declared it right here. Oh, sorry, gets counter. Gets counter. There we go. So it starts at 0. And then we get the same kind of result here without having to do that little thing inside right. So a little bit, in my opinion, a little bit easier, but both of them are acceptable. But the point of all of this is, you see how we're like very slowly going about this. This is not a fast process. It's not a race to the end. It's a very small process. The better you get at this, the more you can take at once before testing. But your process should be build a little bit, Test it. Take a little slice that you think you know how to do. Test it. Think about your edge cases. I knew about right away. I saw that coming. Okay, that's how I knew about it. But you probably didn't. That's something that you probably wouldn't figure out until someone else looks at your code or a customer writes you 2 months later saying, I did this and this didn't work. What's going on? And you're like, huh, head scratcher for 2 or 3 hours. Okay. And that's totally expected. That happens to me all the time. It's just my stuff is going to be different than your stuff. But it still happens to me. Whenever I write code, there's always bugs in it. You know those updates that you get for your phone? You know those updates that you get for your operating system? That is the developers patching bugs that they didn't know existed. Because every piece of software always has bugs, all the time. Now, that's not an excuse to just say, I can't help it, therefore I won't look for them, right? We're still trying to crush as many bugs as possible, but don't be too hard on yourself, is what I'm saying. And finally, get character. This is our last one. I'm going to just come out and say, get character and get string are uncanny in how they look in their approach, right? Instead of getting a full string and splitting on spaces, we are getting one character at a time. But we don't want spaces in there. That's the only difference. So we have one more little piece of work to do. So if I were to use this one, I'm going to use this one because there's spaces and line breaks. We do want to include spaces, but we don't want the line breaks. So ignore what the expected output is here. So how do we want to do this? Well, we want to get one character at a time. And if we use this approach, which is instead of getting one character at a time, getting a line at a time, instead of splitting on \n, let's split on empty string. Empty string, if I take a line and I split on empty string, or not even if I split it, I don't even need to split it. I can just access it. First character, second character, third character, fourth character, fifth character, right? That's what this counter is doing. But we can call it the get seed counter, and we'll just create another one. And then we can just say this.contents get this character. Now let's try that. So we're just going to get one character at a time. Undefined. Did I call it get this counter? Oh, I need to return it. Sorry, I forgot that part. And we have line space 1. Now, here is where we ran into a problem. We printed out the line break, and I probably shouldn't do that. Line breaks do not count as characters. Okay, I should probably remove them, right? There will not be tabs or white space new line characters other than S and /n, and the content depending file will not start with a new line. So technically, line breaks are not counted as characters. If you didn't catch that, that's fine. Okay, let's deal with that now. How can I remove these line breaks out before I start going through the characters? How can I modify this string so I can remove these line breaks out? Any ideas? I'll give you an idea. Start with split and then join. Split and join. These two together is essentially a replace. Find and replace in a string. Find all of these and replace them with these. That's essentially what this is, right? Find all the \n's and replace them with empty string. And then print out. So we can take a look at that. Line space 1, line, and I ran out of room. You could argue that maybe you should have a space in between there or something because they're new lines, but yeah, probably, I guess. Should probably be a little bit better with that. But there you have it. And that's it. That's our whole file. It's really just little string manipulation. Learning how to use properties, okay, like this counter thing, how properties stick around, right? And this is the whole benefit of an object. Each object has its own counter. Each object represents its own file. It has its own contents. It has its own stuff. None of these objects collide with each other, okay? These are the benefits of object-oriented programming. And now I have this interface for interacting with a file. I don't really need to know exactly what's in it. I just need to know how to use it, right? This is all I really need to know about it. How the implementation right now, what if I want to go ahead and start using it, doesn't really matter. And that's it. Questions, comments? Was that too slow for you? Was that good? It's good. It's good. Good. Questions, comments, concerns? No. All right. Let's take a break, and we'll come back at 25 after, and then we'll take a look at get you to do. Number one, I went ahead and like I said, I did a little bit of reading yesterday. And was looking for some information about problem solving. Sometimes I forget that. So for me, problem solving is one of those skills that needs to be developed over time. There are some techniques that can be useful for helping you problem solve, break down problems, attack problems, how you should think about problems and stuff like that. There have been some books written about it. Personally, through university, I was never taught specifically how to, like, steps to problem solve. But I would link to this article. I read it yesterday. I read a couple of them. I really liked this one. And it's called How to Think Like a Programmer, Lessons in Problem Solving. It's not long. It's about a 10-minute read. It's just a small article with a couple of steps that you might be interested in. If you're interested in digging into this further, if you're having problems specifically with understanding the scope of the problem, applying the knowledge that you have, because there's always this balance. There's always two sides to everything, right? One, we need to be good enough in JavaScript syntax, right? We need to have a good vocabulary in the JavaScript syntax. We need to know what sort of things are available. We need to know how to use it. But also, so that's one side of the coin, but that's not going to help you solve your problems, right? It's not going to help you solve your problems all the way. It's going to definitely help you solve your problems, but that's not all that's required. The other piece is how do you think logically about it? How do you break it down? How do you tackle these things? And so that's something different. Okay, that's a different skill, and usually over time that skill gets developed. Right? My mic on here? Just want to make sure that I'm not on mute. That'd be crazy.
I can hear you.
Okay, good, good. Okay, that takes time to develop, and the more you practice, the more problems you do, the more you practice, the better you get at it. Because over time, you will start to see that while every problem is a little bit different, you'll often start to discover similarities. Like, it's not the same, but it's similar. I wonder if I can use the same approach as this. Or you have this big problem and you start breaking it down and you're like, well, I've encountered this small problem before. I know how to do that. I've encountered this small one before. I know how to do that, right? And so those problems, those smaller problems are, again, similar to other things that you've done before. And that's a lot. So while I say, oh, you're going to be building things you've never built before, but they will often be very similar to things you have built before. And so you might have an idea of where to start and how to go about it, and just a general sense of your approach. Bear in mind, it's very unlikely it's going to be identical. Very, very, very. Even though everyone's going to tell you, oh, it's the same. People who don't know. When I say everyone, I mean non-programmers. Non-programmers are going to come to you and say, can you just build this? Doesn't seem very hard. Should just take a day. It's just like that other thing that we did for the other client. And you're thinking in your head like, no, it's not. It's different. It's not going to take a day. It's going to take longer than that, right? Tarek, my boss, is always coming in to my classroom and saying, hey, you think your students can build this? Probably won't take very long. Maybe just a day, maybe just 2. I'm like, no, it's not how long it's going to take. It's going to take 2 weeks, 2 months. Like, you don't know, you don't understand. And so because a lot of the problems we saw, a lot of the problems are not very, very well thought through. So a little bit of reading, take a look at that. 10, 15 minutes might help you. Okay, and then we're going to look at our exercise. Don't freak out. Okay, don't freak out. So there's a lot of writing here. We are making a shopping cart. Okay, so there's a lot to read here. So rule number 1, read it multiple times. Make sure you have a good understanding of what you're doing and what's expected of you. I will show you the final product and I will show you what you start with. So to start, just come over to the page. Okay, it should be open and available already because I opened it yesterday, and download this very functional piece of HTML with some JavaScript already. So if you don't mind, please do this while I do this. Do this as well while I do this. We'll take a look at, I'll show you what you get, and I'll show you the final product. Okay, so you're going to open the index.html page. Once you download your zip, okay, crack open your index.html page. You don't need to take a look at the JavaScript just yet. Okay, and I'll pause for a second just to give everyone an opportunity to do this. Okay. Oh, I used the same image twice. I went out and got 5 images. Oh, that was just a mistake. So this is what we're building. We are building a cart where you can add products being courses, to your cart. So the idea here is when you click on a button, add to cart, click, click, it adds it to your cart. Your cart is available up here. Click on this, click on the word cart. Oh, I noticed that it's not using the font awesome either. I wonder if it's being blocked or something. There should be a little font awesome icon there, but not sure why. If you click on your cart, it will just pop open a little thing. These are static. So this is built into the HTML just as an example of what I want your cart to look at if you were to have items in your cart. So all it is in your cart is going to be individual lines that represent each item in your cart. This is not consistent with normal carts. Normal carts put these things together, right? You would see here, I have 3 items in my cart. Technically, I have 1 course in my cart times 3, quantity 3. And that's normally what we're used to, but that's actually a little bit harder. So I didn't want to make it that hard. If you get to the end of this assignment or this exercise before the end of the weekend, you're looking for stuff to do, you can take that approach. It's got the image, it's got the description or the title of the course, it's got the price, and then it has a subtotal of everything that's in your cart plus a total. Okay, calculated.
I have a question. Why is subtotal a lot larger than the 3 items price?
Oh, this is just a sample.
Ah,
This is not real data. Yeah. This is not real data. Okay, this is just a sample of what things are going to look like. When you replace it with the real things, it should properly calculate these things.
So I have a question. So in the sample, the dollar sign is together with the price.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that if if we add another course, let's say for the first one,
Mm-hmm.
the price will be $149.99. So then the last 9 cents will be, they're all aligned to left. So it looks kind of weird.
Oh, yeah. I didn't spend a lot of time. I didn't spend too much time with the styling on this because I was more concerned about the actual functionality. So if you want to mess with the styling, that's fine. Go ahead. You can play around with the styling to get everything perfectly lined up if you want. Yeah. I tried to bang this out in 3 hours or something like that, from 0 to this, including a write-up. And so like I was kind of rushing through a little bit, but yeah, please go ahead. I use a CSS grid in here.
Yeah, I found this very easy to understand and to use.
Yeah, if you want to take a look at CSS, I don't expect you to modify any CSS. Okay, like you technically don't need to touch the CSS as long as you follow the same pattern of HTML and the elements and stuff in the classes. You don't need to modify the CSS. If you don't like how it looks or you want to play around with it, if you want to see how I do this click and show and stuff like that, go ahead, dig through it. It's all there. Okay, CSS grid is pretty easy. And it's just a different way. I also use Flexbox over here. So I use both. Okay, so when you add to cart, it will add the product to the cart. So if you look at the HTML in code, VS Code, which I recommend you do. Okay, I'm going to crack it open. In my cart, I have hard-coded some stuff, right? You have 3 items in your cart, and then here are my 3 LIs, that represent my 3 items. For this to be complete, technically, you don't want to have anything in here. should start as empty, right? That's how it should be starting. But these again are just samples so you can see the different IDs, the different classes, the CSS, the markup, that type of thing. If you want your stuff to look like my stuff, this is what you need to follow. Okay. Okay, so I'll show you a working one for this. And then I'll show you how it acts, and then we'll talk about how we can start thinking about building this, because this might seem like, oh my God, this is so crazy, especially when I start putting in some of the limitations that I'm going to put in. And they're actually not limitations, they're actually benefits. Exercise, shopping cart, incomplete solution. So here's the real one, So I click on add to cart. Now there's nothing that pops up and says your item has been added. Again, if you want to add that, go ahead. I'm trying to limit the scope of this. So I added one introduction to React, one JavaScript testing, one object-oriented JavaScript. Let's take a look at the cart. And I have 1, 2, 3, $9.99, $14.99, $149, my subtotal and my total. Accurately calculated this time. Okay. And if I add another one, yes.
Is your the spaces remaining? Shouldn't that decrement as you're adding? Was that a requirement?
No, not a requirement. That was initially going to be a requirement, and then after I built this, I'm like, ugh, that's a lot. If you want to do something like that, you're more than welcome. You should, like, technically, I would say that is kind of like the stock, and you should be able to add more than 30 spaces or 5 to your cart, technically, but not a requirement. Again, I'm trying to limit the scope of what we're doing here, because trust me, this is going to be hard enough. But again, if you finish,
I looked at it. I believe you.
Yeah. If you finish today and you're looking for something to do, more practice, totally do it. Yeah, it's all totally within your realm. It's just, it's more work. That's all it is. It's not any harder. It's just more work. This is not very good. Where it says 209, it should always say 209.00. So I've got a little bug there that I should fix. Should always be to fix. Okay, add to cart, add to cart. And you can't see it. There should be an X. Okay, I don't know why my Font Awesome isn't loading. There is an error going on here. Failed to load resource. It's not able to load my Font Awesome for some reason. I wonder if that's because I'm using Brave. Well, it shouldn't be applying any blocking. Yeah, okay, so there should be an X here. You can kind of see it when you can't really see it, but you can see my mouse is changing to a hand. But my Font Awesome for some reason isn't loading today for whatever reason. I'll try a different browser and see if it makes a difference. Okay, did I capture it? Well, no, I didn't. Exercise. Okay. Let's try that. See if it works in Firefox. Oh yeah, there we go. See, I don't know, just the browser I'm using. Don't know why that happens, but that could be a realistic thing. Okay, so add to cart, add 3. We look at our cart, we have 3, there we go. There's our X's, okay? When I click on the X, it disappears from the cart. Total updates, subtotal updates, total updates. So if I take away $9.99, we're gonna have a subtotal of $14.99 with a total of $14.99 plus tax. Okay, and this updates as well. You have 1 items in your cart. Okay. All right.
Can I ask a question?
Once yeah, just hold on. Once I click on the last item in my cart, you have 0 items in your cart, subtotal of $0, total of $0. Okay. Okay, go ahead, Yushin.
I kind of have a question about where to put the event listener on the delete button. So
Okay,
if I put it
we'll talk about that. I'll talk about that. So we'll talk about some strategies. So let's now go through the whole write-up together. Okay, let's try to make sense of it, what I'm asking you to do. I'll give you some guidelines, and then we'll sit and problem solve for a little bit about some approaches that I would recommend that you use for this. By the way, this is a warm-up for the assignment coming in on Monday. Okay, it's not identical, but it's similar. Again, right, just like I said, they're never the same, but they're similar. Okay, so I'm gonna pop back over to Brave here. Broken Brave. Okay. And we'll take a look at the write-up. Okay. So shopping carts. For this exercise, you will be building a working shopping cart. I provide you with a framework with some limited functionality, but you will need to extend on that logic. What does that mean? I provide you with a framework with some limited functionality. We'll take a look at that very soon. Your logic should allow someone to do the following, should allow the users to do the following. Click on the Add to Cart button. It will add the product to the cart. Clicking on a Remove button in the cart will remove that item from the cart. Clicking on the once you add or remove an item from the cart, your subtotals get updated and reflect the subtotals and the totals of the items in the cart. Pretty straightforward. Okay. With respect to your HTML, you don't need to do very much. You will need to remove the hard-coded stuff that's in the cart because you're going to be dynamically adding that with that stuff with JavaScript as you add or remove stuff from the cart. Okay, I just provide that to you as reference. Okay. Okay, where is that? Okay. CSS. There's really nothing to do here unless you want to do extensions. Just follow the HTML that I've provided and you will be fine. Okay, you don't need to mess with the CSS. You may need to inspect the HTML and the CSS and the classes and IDs that I use so it applies the correct CSS, but you don't need to touch the CSS file as long as you follow it. Okay. JavaScript. I have provided you with a JavaScript file called courses.js. Don't touch it. Okay, if you look at the files that I provide you, I give you a JavaScript folder with a JavaScript file called courses.js. You do not need to touch this. In fact, if you do touch this, you might break everything. Okay, you are welcome to look at it. All it is a course, a class course, a bunch of course info, and an array, me adding the popover for the cart, right? That on click that pops up the cart. Actually, is that what I'm doing? I don't even think I'm doing that actually. And, oh, yeah. And I'm populating all the courses on the page, right? If I don't do this, these, like if you look at the HTML and you scroll down, it is just an empty UL where I have the courses. There are actually no courses there. I build the courses and populate them dynamically with this JavaScript file. So don't touch it. What this does give you, though, is it does give you an array that you can use called courses. You now, in your JavaScript file, you have access to this array called courses. Okay, so you could say courses dot, or so courses 0, and this courses 0. Okay, if we look at the courses array, it's 5 courses, 5 course objects. Each of them has an ID, a unique identifier, SD100, SD110, right? They have a price, how much the course costs. They have an instructor. They have available spaces. They have a title, a description, and a link to that image file. Okay, and then I just loop through and populate it. Again, you might need to inspect the HTML to see what it looks like, right? If I come over here, remember, these are all dynamic, so I might need to inspect these to see what they look like, so I can figure out what I'm clicking on. Where do I want to put my event listeners? Okay. Again, don't touch this file. Look at it, don't touch it. I'm already preloading it for you in the HTML, line 10. You should be putting your script after it. Remember, as you know, in JavaScript, I can't use variables if I haven't already declared them. I have to declare variables before I can use them. So that means my variable declaration needs to come first before I'm using it. And if I have 2 JavaScript files, that means I have to declare my variable first before I can start using it. Does that make sense to you? Which means I need to load my custom JavaScript file after the one I provide you, right? So I can see variables declared over here from this file. I can see, we can, as long as they're global, right? As long as they're just sitting out here in the global scope, this courses variable, I can see over here in my file, as long as it's not scoped in a function or something. Okay, so I can see it, even though they're in different files, as long as they're declared in the proper order, right? The variable that gets declared first, then I can use it. Does that make sense? Okay. So your job is going to be to write app.js. So I'm not trying to make this hard. I'm trying to make this easier. I've essentially saved you all the hassle of putting all this stuff out here. Okay, next up. I provide you with a variable that you can access called courses, which is an array of course objects. This class has a handful of properties that you'll want to familiarize yourself with. So take a look at this course object and check out all the properties. Nothing special going on here. Pretty straightforward. There's not even a method on it. Okay. Nothing, no crazy logic happening. You are to create a new JavaScript file and load it in the HTML after courses.js. Order matters, like I just said. And this new JavaScript file contains all the logic that allows your you to add courses to the shopping cart. Here is what should be in your JavaScript file. You are required to have a cart class. So we have a course class. Now we need a cart class. And this cart class will track all the courses in our cart. Which means if we're tracking courses in our cart, we probably need some properties like an empty array of courses because our cart starts empty. And length, an integer, a property, an integer that identifies the amount of courses in your cart. It should also have at least 4 methods. Add a course. So add a course, which is a method that will add a specific course to your cart. Like here is a new course. Cart, I would like you to add it to my array of courses. Remove course. Hey, cart, go find this course and remove it from your array of courses. Subtotal. Calculate the total of all the courses in the cart without tax. Return a decimal number with 2 decimal places. And finally, the 4th method is total. A method that will calculate the total value of courses in your cart plus 13% tax. It should be a decimal number, 2 places. You're welcome to, you are not limited to these, but you should have these. If you need more properties or you need more methods, no problem, add whatever you need, okay? I have 1 more. I'll be honest, I have an extra method in there, but that's just how I do it. Here are some tips to be successful. Each course object has an ID associated with it. And we can see that over here. Okay, SD100 for the first course. This ID has also been injected into the HTML using a data attribute. Let's go take a look at what I mean by that. See this course here that I have highlighted? Oops. This course here that I have highlighted, the first course. If you look, it has a course ID, data-course.id, SD260, SD145, SD120. This allows us to identify what we just clicked on. Okay, and I'll tell you why this is important in a moment. Okay, so just keep this in mind. You can use this to figure out what course was clicked, so you know what you need to add to your cart. The add course and remove course methods should accept at least 1 parameter that helps you. So add course, the method add course, and remove course. I don't say that they should have parameters here, but I'm saying it might be a good idea to identify, hey, remove this course from the cart. Hey, add this course to the cart. Okay, what parameter is completely up to you, but I use the course ID parameter. You do not have to group together items in your cart, right? Like I showed you here, 3 of the same items. I don't have to group them together and say introduction to web development times 3. I highly, highly recommend you delegate your event listeners for your own sanity. Delegate your event listeners, meaning don't put 5 event listeners, okay, here, 1 on each button. Don't do that. Just add 1 event listener to this whole thing and capture any click. Same thing with your cart. Don't add multiple event listeners, 1 for each item in your cart. Just add 1 event listener. Trust me. And notice the cart has a little number at the top, note indicating how many items in your cart. Remember to update this. Okay. Last piece. and I mentioned this before, but I want to reinforce this. I'm going to write it down. You should write this down too. The DOM is not the source of truth for the data. Okay, the DOM is not the source of truth for the data. What do I mean by that? Can anyone tell me what I mean by that?
So you don't want to get things like numbers or prices from your page. You want to get them from like the array of courses you provided, right?
Exactly. So this is a pretty consistent concept that's going to be following you throughout development, is that the UI that we're working with, the user interface, the stuff where we display the data, is not where we're storing the data and getting the data from. It is only a reflection of the state of the data that we currently have. What I mean by that is I have a courses array with a bunch of courses and a bunch of data in it. When someone clicks on this add to cart button, I am not going to get the instructor name and the price and the title and the image from the DOM itself. I am not going and selecting those elements from the DOM, pulling out those values, taking off this $sign. I'm not doing that, right? This is simply a reflection of the data I have in the system. I should be going to the existing data in the system, that courses array, and looking up that course. This has an ID on it for a reason, SD260. So when someone clicks on this add to cart, this is the only piece of data that I should be going to get. I should go get SD260, and then I should go find SD260, courses.find. Go find the course with the ID SD260 and put it in your cart. That is how we track data. That is how we track and manage data. And then we say some sort. Then we need to update what the cart looks like based on what courses are in the cart. So that is the process that we need to learn to follow, is that our UI is not where we store data and not where we get data from. I store data in objects. I store data in classes. I store data in variables. And then my UI, my DOM, is just a reflection of that. So what you're going to find yourself doing is when someone clicks this button, you're going to find yourself doing some object stuff. You're going to call a method on your object. You're going to go and look for the course. You're going to put that course into your cart, and then you're going to update the UI based on the courses in your cart. Same thing when someone removes it. When someone clicks on that X, you're going to call the method that removes the item. You're going to find the item. You're going to take it out of the physical cart array, and then you're going to update the UI to reflect what's in your cart. You're not storing data in the DOM. You're not taking data out of the DOM. The DOM is a reflection of the data that you currently have. The reason we do that, there are several reasons why we do that. One, you want to have a single source of truth for your data. And that's often going to be some sort of database or something else on the data, on the JavaScript or backend side. It's never going to be your DOM. Two, pulling things out of the DOM and storing things in the DOM is a lot of work. It's actually way more work and way harder to track everything. In addition, it's more resource intensive. Constantly writing to the DOM and constantly reading from the DOM is expensive. It costs memory. It costs speed. Okay. So can you imagine having to go through, pull out every time I click add to cart, come here, make 5 different DOM requests to pull out each individual thing, and then make 7 individual DOM requests to insert it over here every time I do that? That's crazy. Okay. Security is a big reason too. We don't want people just going here and modifying their, right? No, this course is not $149.99. This course is $199. Ha! Right? Now, if this was the source of truth, that would be a problem. Right? Now I add to cart and my course is $1.99, but it's not. Okay, so there are several reasons why, several arguments against it. And obviously, I want to limit it because I want you to work with your objects. Now, let's talk about strategy. Okay, strategy for this. I've got a couple of big, helpful hints aside from what I wrote down. Strategy number 1. Break down your problem into small problems. For example, don't look at this as like, holy cow, this is a lot of stuff. There's so many pieces to interact with. Look at it like this. What's the first thing I'm going to do? Well, the first thing you do might be different than the first thing I do. The first thing I do is going to be, well, I need to be able to listen to a button click. That's kind of like the first thing I need to be able to do. Listen to a button click. Listen to a button click. So I'll go do that. But John said, I should delegate. What does delegate mean again? Delegate means that I shouldn't put an event listener on each button. Instead, I should put one event listener on all of these things. And all of these things, if I look at the DOM, are contained in a UL called courses. So I don't really want to listen for the button click. I really want to listen for clicks on courses. Okay, that's the first thing I'm going to do. Go write some stuff that listens for clicks on courses. We got that? Great. Now, the problem with delegation is that I don't want to capture a click on this image. I don't want to capture a click on this price. I don't want to capture a click on the instructor. I have a listener that's listening for any clicks that occur within this blue rectangle, but I want to make sure that I'm checking that the click occurred on the elements that I care about. What are the elements that I care about? Button, right. So now I want to make sure that the click occurred on the button. Okay, on not the button, a button. And this is going to be our e.target. Remember that. We're coming back to DOM here. So this is a quick DOM refresher. That is our e.target. That is our event target. Okay, EVE, event, whatever you called it. That's our event target. Okay. Now, once we're positive it occurred on the button, now Okay, so now we have a button click. What's the next step we want to do after a button click? What do you think might be a good next step? It could be a big step, and which we can start whittling down to smaller steps. And the big step is we want to add this to the cart. That's a big step. Let's chop that up. Okay, well, when we want to add this course to the cart? Well, what does that mean? Let's break that up. Well, to add this course to the cart, we need to figure out what course we're talking about. What course did I just click on? So figure out what course I just clicked on. Again, the question is, how do I do that? How do I know what course I clicked on? Is there anything in the DOM that provides me with an identifier for the course I just clicked on?
Does it have an ID or class?
It sure does. It sure has a course ID right on it. Right on the LI. It has data-course.id, which means we can use that information. If I can extract that out, I can then use that information and go look and find the actual course. So you're going to want to extract the data course ID value. I recommend you look this up. The closest method. Okay. Go take a look at the closest method. That's a DOM method. Okay. It's on DOM elements. So you'll be able to do something like e.target.closest. You'll have to look into a little bit more to figure out exactly how it works and what it does. But okay, I recommend you go take a look at that. You'll get this course ID. Once you have that, now what can you do with it? Well, now you can actually start thinking, and this is before you even built your object. Your cart object, right? Because if you have a course, you're probably going to want to use that course ID. You're going to want to use this course ID to look for the correct course, the matching course object in the courses array. So you've got this course ID. Now I need to go find the matching course in there. Okay. And again, that's kind of just like a courses.find with some special stuff inside using this course ID. You're going to find that we use find a lot. So if you're not super well versed in it, you should get yourself versed in it. Okay. You can also use a for loop. That works too. Okay. Once you find that, we need to add this course to our cart. Okay. Which means now is the first time that we ever needed our cart. We didn't need our cart until line 10. So we could do all this stuff without even creating a cart. Now we need our cart. So now we can build our cart object. So now we can build our cart class and we can add those two properties and one method. And at least one method. Which method do you think we need?
Add course.
Yeah. Add course. So this is where we're going to add our course. Okay. I'm going to stop here. Because I think this gives you a pretty good starting point. But you see how I'm just doing this piecewise. Here's the thing. Every step of the way, I'm testing. Every step of the way, I'm testing. What course did I just click on? Console.log, information. Console.log, elements. Console.log, e.target. Console.log, am I even where I think I am? Right, like console.log, console.log, console.log. Or debugger, use your debugger. If you're good with the debugger in sources, use your debugger. Put breakpoints in there, okay? And find out where you're at. Are you finding the right course? Are you getting the object you're expecting? Are you dealing with a string? Are you dealing with, like, you need to be tracking this the whole way. Don't get this far and try to just assume that everything's going to work along the way. You need to do this piecewise, very, very piecewise, which is why we want to break it down into really tiny pieces, one piece at a time. Okay. Some of these may be even too big for you, right? Can you break this down further? What does this mean? What does it mean to, once we found the course, we need to add it to our cart? What does that mean to you? Break that down into small pieces. Break that down into individual lines of code if you need to. But try to approach it from this point first before you just start writing code. What is it that I'm trying to do right now? How can I break this down into really small pieces? Write it and test it until it works. Okay? And next thing you know, you're going to have a working cart. I have some extra stuff at the bottom over here, but at the bottom over here for advanced. Feel free to add whatever you want. Okay, there's a lot of little things you can add. Like I mentioned, you can add limitations on spaces remaining. You can add aggregation. So instead of having 3 separate ones, you can have 1, 2, 3. And there are some problems with this. Okay, there are some problems that I'll show you on Monday that I'm not telling you about because I just left them in there because they're too complicated for me to ask you to manage. So if you find any weird bugs, like I'll show you this one weird bug. Here's a weird bug. So if I add 2 of these to my cart, and then I add React to my cart, and then I add another one of these to my cart, if I click on, so see I have 4 items in my cart. If I click on this one, you would think that it should remove this one, and I should have object-oriented, introduction to React, and object-oriented. So 3 items left. It should go yellow, blue, yellow, right? Watch what happens. Oh, sorry, let me fix that. I didn't quite set that up correctly. Yellow, blue, yellow, yellow. Okay. So if I click on this one, it should go, so I'm going to remove this one. It should go yellow, yellow, blue, yellow. But it didn't. It removed the last one.
Oh, because they have the same ID, right? And you're looking only for ID.
Yeah. I'm going to show you how to fix that on Monday. I don't expect you to be able to fix that automatically, but I will show you on Monday because that will apply to your assignment. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns?
I have a question about the species under the add to cart. If there's a 0, if there can it show out of store?
Don't worry about it. If you want to go further, if you want to do an advanced version, my question would be, how do you want it to act? What do you think it should do? What would as someone who's used websites to purchase things before, what would be your expectation? Right? And then go ahead and try that. So I don't have any expectations for you to do anything with that, at least right now. But what would be your expectation? How would you manage it? What would you expect to happen to that number as you add elements to your cart or courses to your cart? And go ahead and try that and see how it works. So again, nothing in particular. So you don't even have to worry about it if you don't want to.
Okay.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So so I found myself like writing the Doom stuff and the class stuff together, and I don't think that's right approach, right?
I did that too. I mixed one approach that I did. So I'll tell you a couple of interesting approaches that I took. So the do stuff and the class stuff together, right? The DOM stuff and the class stuff. So when I add my elements to my cart in that same method, I'm also redrawing my cart in my class.
You're
my
also
class.
injecting stuff within your add course method, right? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's not bad. That's not a bad thing.
No, for right now, it's fine. We're going to look at ways that we can avoid that in future courses. But that is an approach. React. This is what we're doing right now. Is we're kind of doing React without using React. And then we'll get to React and we'll kind of make the same thing, and you'll see how much easier it is. But yeah, some people separate those two. Like, no, this is my class. My class should be focused on my class. It shouldn't be updating my UI. But it's fine. Here's a tip. My recommendation is to make it easier. Every time you change your cart, change means adding or removing. My recommendation is you destroy your entire cart and redraw the whole thing. Instead of trying to figure out what's changed and insert things in the right place and remove elements from the right place, just trash the whole thing, rebuild and reinsert. That's what I would do. And trust me, it's way easier. So all you're doing is you just need to take your array and build the cart based on your array of courses every time. If that changes, redraw. If it gets bigger, redraw. If it gets smaller, redraw. That's it. Just redraw this whole thing every time. That way you can just have one function that just redraws cart. That's my extra function. It's called redraw cart, and it just redraws the cart. So when I add or I remove, redraw cart. Okay, that's a tip. I'll show you how we do that on Monday if you don't figure it out, but I think you should. It's pretty easy. Any other questions? Okay, so read and practice. You've got a lot of stuff. You got your work cut out for you. So Monday, the assignment is going to be handed to you probably by the time after we're done reviewing this, but I'm going to do a thorough job reviewing this, and I'm going to use it as an opportunity to continue to teach. So it's not going to be a fast review. It'll be a slow review. And then your assignment is going to be kind of similar. Okay. But it won't be an in-class assignment. It will be a take home. And I think I'm going to give you, so Monday, let's say from noon until Tuesday at 3:15. So from noon till Tuesday at 3:15. It's not going to be take home and hand in 8:45 the next day. I want to make sure that I give you enough time to get the results that I want. So, okay, but it will be in line with this. I know we're all of a sudden it's like, what? We're back at DOM. Yeah, we're back at DOM. And this, it's not going to leave now. We're always going to come back to the DOM because that's where most of the interesting stuff happens. Okay, so again, Zach and I are available. Shoot me a message on the weekend if you need any help. I'll do my best to answer. Pretty standard stuff. Ping Zach, make him work. I get worried about him. He is in the process still of marking assignments. Some of the marks have already been released. I forgot to put a hold on the marks, so they're just coming out as they come out, which means they might change because I haven't reviewed them yet, unfortunately. So it's just probably better that you don't look at it because it might change. What I've been doing in the past is grade them all, review them, and then release them. But I forgot to check that checkbox this time. So sorry about that. Okay, that is it. Let's grab some lunch and then get to programming after, or have a nap, or do whatever you need to do. Okay, go outside, go for a walk. Have a good afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. I'll see you. If I don't see you this afternoon or on the weekend, I'll see you on Monday, 8:45.